Hello everyone, this is Frank DeFreitas and welcome to HoloTalk, the Internet's laser and holography talk show, enjoyed in over 42 countries throughout the world. And now, here's this week's show. Hello Paul, this is Frank DeFreitas with HoloTalk. How are you?
Hey Frank, how you doing?
Doing pretty good.
Good.
Why don't we start off with you telling us some general background information about Liti Holographics itself, as far as how it came into being, where it was, and where you see it going in the future.
Okay. Terrific. We're all set?
We're all set and ready to roll.
This is too easy, huh?
Well, you know, I like to keep life simple. Holography's tough enough.
Very true. Liti Holographics started as an idea when I was up at MIT, when I was still finishing my master's degree up there at the Spatial Imaging Group at the Media Lab. And I'm one of those strange kids who always knew I wanted to start a company in holography and making holograms. And so I started to brew on that idea actually a long time before, but started to crystallize some of the things I wanted to do. And I actually came across a very inexpensive pulsed ruby laser when I was up in Boston. And through a twisted series of events, wound up purchasing the system and actually setting it up for about the last year I was up in Boston and actually using it. At the time, I was finishing a master's degree, which is 2 years, and I had thought through sticking around for a PhD, but basically decided it was too cold in Boston. And I had the itch to start a company. So we moved down here to Newport News, Virginia, a long ways away, but much warmer, because my wife was doing her medical residency down here.
You had snow down here last night, didn't you?
We did. Yeah. We had about 5 or 6 inches.
Yeah, how about it?
It's I was shoveling the driveway this morning just like I had to do in Boston. So not too different, unfortunately. But this is, I think this is the first time a lot of businesses have been closed in a long time. So, you know, occasionally you get a little sprinkle of snow and everybody freaks out, but it's not too bad. We got about 5 inches last night.
Well, I see Liti Holographics is open.
Yeah, we got big things to accomplish. So
yes.
We push pretty hard. We moved down here to Newport News mainly because my wife was needed to come down here for residency, and I moved the whole pulse laser system down here. And for about the first 2.5 years, we were doing pulsed holography for the purpose of doing market research on holograms to really understand who wanted holograms and what they wanted to do with them.
What year are you referring to when you're starting up there with the pulsed system?
Yeah, this would have been, I graduated up at MIT in 97, I believe. So it would have been about 97 through 99, around there. And for about the first year, I'd come into the office and pretty much lock the door behind me. And we built a real nice pulse ruby system capable of doing very nice pulse masters as well as pulse transfers. And we were doing something very similar to, I've talked to Rob Taylor over at Fourth Dimension, so I think you've interviewed as well.
Out in Indiana.
Yeah. And we did something very similar. We didn't have a whole, I think he's got a Geola system. We basically developed our own Ruby system, but did similar stuff. Pulse portraits, commercial holograms. We did some for the local radio station. All sorts of things, some for Verizon Wireless. Basically trying to figure out who wanted holograms, where did it fit, using our seed money to discover that before we wound up getting other people's money as an investment. We really wanted to know where we were going.
Yeah, that's quite a question to have to answer, too.
It is. It's a question that's plagued a lot of us for a long time. And we wanted to have some answers so that we just had some sort of a vision when we went to get outside investors. And so after about 2.5 years, we really felt that, you know, kind of the commercial holograms, particularly the point of purchase area, a lot of the advertising agencies and people we had shown the holograms to, we told them this is what pulse holograms look like, but we're planning on doing, you know, stereogram, full color holograms. It'll have a little bit of movement, and their eyes would light up.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be full color. Their eyes would light up even more. And, it'll be at least this size. We were doing about 16 by 20 pulse holograms, I believe. And so they were really excited. They said, man, if you can do all those things, we think it'll be a real hit.
Mm-hmm.
And so I believe it was in about March of 2000, we raised our first round of outside investors and kind of really kicked things off, heading in the direction of doing full-color stereograms, which was the vision I had all the way back from MIT. We knew that's what we needed to do, to do the full-color work, to do stereograms, to give us a lot of the flexibility. And so that was really the start, the official start of Liti Holographics with the outside investors. And we hired a couple of engineers and a couple other people, and we've been really focused on doing the full-color stereograms now for about 3 years.
Yeah. Now, I sent an email blast out to the HoloTalk readership, letting them know we were going to do this interview ahead of time for two purposes. Number one was to allow them to take some time to review your website ahead of time.
Great.
And the second reason was to get questions back from them. And we'll get to those questions in a moment. But, they're great questions.
Good deal. Okay.
The area I'd like to get into now is the fact that you seem to have two divisions. You have a commercial division, and you have one that seems to be geared toward the consumer. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about both of those divisions of Liti Holographics.
Sure. For most of the last 3 years, we have been almost entirely geared towards the commercial side. We, for about the first year, from about March 2000 when we got our first funding round, we really focused on building the equipment. We built everything from the ground up. We've got our own printer systems, as we call them, hologram printers. Developed a whole set of equipment that we could use and are really making terrific full-color stereogram holograms. The thrust of that after about the first year and drawing on what we had learned from the pulsed holograms was we wanted to get into the commercial market, the point-of-purchase industry. And part of the motivation for that was even though we had built a stereogram printer and even though we had automated most of the equipment, it still took a fair amount of time to create each hologram, and there was a fair amount of, sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't in those early stages. So typically our holograms, mainly the first one, were too expensive for an ordinary individual to afford. And that forced us as well, even though that was where we thought we were heading, but that kind of forced us to stay in the commercial area. We've done that for about a year and a half. Gotten a little bit of traction, and we actually have a number of holograms up in Nordstrom stores across the country.
Before you say any more, let me just let the listeners know where those Nordstrom stores are located. I'm looking at... I'm thinking this is Des Perez, Missouri. I'm not sure if Des Perez is how you pronounce it.
I'm not sure either. But
could be Des Perez.
That'll be easier for them to spell when they try and type it in.
If you're in Missouri and there's a Nordstrom, you know that what Des Perez means, I'm sure. And we have Coral Gables, Florida. Orlando, Florida. And the Nordstrom in Las Vegas. So if HoloTalk listeners are in any of those locations, go into that Nordstrom store. And there is actually a smaller store within a store, which is called the Brass Plum for teenage female clothing, and that's where you'll find the holograms that Paul is speaking about right now. Go ahead.
And we're getting great feedback from those. They say it's really cool. You can see them all the way across the store. Nordstrom did a really good job of implementing the holograms, and they look really nice. They really set the store off. We've done holograms for a number of other companies. One of our most infamous is we did a trade show hologram for Britney Spears, which we didn't have any. We didn't get the chance to have Britney Spears come to Newport News, Virginia, of course. I don't know why, but
I'm sure she's very busy.
Possibly, I don't know. But
well, if you didn't get her to come there, I know sure as heck I can't get her to come to Allentown.
You can't get her on the phone either, huh? Now, essentially, we took some video clip information, which actually had some capability to get parallax out of it. We knew what we were looking for, and combined it with some computer graphics information, made a real nice trade show hologram for her record company, which is called Jive Records. So we've done a number of commercial jobs like that, but
you have a few of those samples as AVI movie files on your website as well, I'd like to point out.
And if you take a look at the LitiHolographics.com website, we have a gallery section that I think you can click on from the home page, and you can see a couple of the different movie clips, obviously, of some of the holograms we've done.
You did a variation of The Kiss.
Yes.
Lloyd Cross's piece.
For people, it's kind of fun for me because I remember seeing Lloyd Cross's hologram, The Kiss, as many of us have seen, and just thought it was really cool, really grabs you. Very effective, but very simple. And that was one of the things when we were first getting some material to do some test holograms and be able to show people what we were capable of. That was a little fun thing. I decided I wanted to do a little remake, pay a little homage, and
well, at the same time,
really nice.
Moving the technology ahead.
Yes.
And who was the model for that, if you don't mind me asking?
Her name is Sarah. I don't have her.
Well, it's probably best we don't give her last name anyway. I guess.
That's possibly true, but she's a very attractive California girl, I think aspiring model, and she also just had a natural charisma that came across in the camera that also is captured in the hologram.
I'll certainly agree to that. Yes.
So those are a number of the things we've done on the commercial side. In about November, just a few months ago, middle of November, we had a huge breakthrough here in our labs that we found a way of making the holograms that we were producing at a fraction of the time, and as a result, a fraction of the cost that it typically took us to make the holograms that we were delivering for commercial clients. And that really got us excited because this has been one of the motivations for me and one of the motivations for the company all along, is that we've wanted to really take hologram technology and bring it down to a point where ordinary people can use it. And very similar to some of the stuff you do on your website.
Yes.
Some of the educational stuff. How can I do it? How can I understand it? And one of the emphasis we want to have is how can we create something that you can use?
Yes,
that
exactly.
You can have a hologram of yourself or your family or something that interests you. We've all got, probably collected some holograms of dinosaurs or eyeballs or a couple of nice art ones if you've had the fortune to find a good holography store. And usually they're exciting because they're three-dimensional, they're cool, they're interesting. We wanted to add to that and have people have the option to be able to see something not only that's cool in terms of a hologram, but something that really excites them. See their family, their pet or their hobby, something that interests them, and to be able to use it as a tool and not have it cost the earth to do so. And so we've been pushing that we had the discovery in just mid-November, just a few months ago here, not even that, and got the website up, I think, early December, and have really been pushing to try and let people know about it. We really want people to use this as something fun and a tool and something brand new that used to be, in many people's minds, just science fiction.
Yeah, it's a very exciting development. Could we move on to a few of the readers' questions because they happen to pertain to your new discovery out there?
No problem.
Okay. And I'm just going to use, it's always been the policy just to use initials for the same reason why we didn't want to use Sarah's last name.
Sure.
This one came through from MH, and I know MH, and he's just getting back into holography after not being in holography for a number of years, so he's very excited about that.
Good.
He has two questions here. Do they have plans to license the equipment out to third parties?
Would you like me to answer both of them at the same time, or just we'll start with that one?
Actually, we can combine these two because the second one is, are there any patents covering this technology, which I assume is based on the work done at MIT?
Okay. In answer to the first question, what we're doing right now is really acting a little bit more like what might be called a service bureau. Really, we've developed the technology in-house. It's not something that we're, at this time, looking to design, for instance, holo printers that we could license out or sell, something like that. Although that may be a possibility for the future.
You don't want to discount that.
Exactly. I mean, you look at a lot of these optical things, and I mean, the laser printer I have sitting in our office here is awfully complex. If they can do that, I think there's probably a good chance we can do this eventually.
Mm-hmm.
But for probably the next couple of years, we're going to focus on refining the technology in-house, and then being able to use it in our final product that goes out will be the holograms. One of the things we are interested in doing is possibly talking to people who can be an input point for our holograms.
Yes.
And I think that's real exciting in terms of possibly working together with other people. A lot of people are sending us video, or we're trying to encourage them just to send us regular videotape, which we can create what we call a video clip hologram that allows you to make a moving picture, but obviously you can't turn that into 3D.
Yes.
We're not trying to trick anybody that, we can take your video and turn it into 3D.
Yeah. There are two separate types of holograms. Maybe you should just point that out.
Sure.
Yeah.
We kind of talk about two different types on the website, although for a number of the people who will be listening to this and people who are familiar with holography, it's really the same technique. It's just different usages. One is putting just a standard motion clip or video clip into the hologram and creating a moving picture, something that no ordinary picture can do. And it allows you to get away from something that all of us have videotapes of our kids or special moments or vacations, but the chances of you getting your friends to sit down in front of the video machine while you play that for them are about the same as getting people to come over and watch your slideshow.
Yes.
It's a little tough sometimes. Now you can take about 3 to 6 seconds of video of a really cool moment in that, of your daughter blowing out her birthday candles, or your kids waving to you in a family portrait, or anything else really, and capture that as a little moving picture that you can hang on your wall, put on your desk, do all the things you do with a normal picture. So that's kind of a way for people who aren't as familiar with holograms and parallax and all of those technical things to use holograms to do something different, to still improve some of the things that they're doing in their lives, to get cooler pictures.
And unlike a slideshow that you would watch on your monitor or on your television, once this is on the wall and lit, it's always on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a nice, smooth movement. I mean, it's very fluid. We can capture about 3 to 6 seconds, depending on how rapid the movements are. It's very cool, and it's one way for us to start to try and draw more people out there into the holography community.
Yeah.
The second type we talk about on the website, which is really the same process, but if you film the information that goes into the hologram properly, or if you capture it, through computer graphics or render it out, if you capture it with the proper perspective angles and what we need, the same hologram can be a true 3D hologram that will also have the capabilities of capturing motion. And that's something that we're very excited about, possibly working with people who know how to capture some of the technical needs or some of the images with the technical needs that we would have, that they might be able to reach out to people in their community, film or capture the images or help them gather the information that's needed, and then send it into us so that these people can really have three-dimensional holograms and really nice ones. So we see that as something that, if people are interested, that can be a great added value that they can bring to what we do, and hopefully a way that we can work together. As far as the technology and what's been patented, we're in the process of filing provisional patents right now to cover what we're doing. And all I can really say is that it's actually not MIT technology. We actually created technology that was very independent from MIT. And when I was up at MIT, one of the first questions I asked Professor Benton up there was, if I work on some of these ideas I have, who do they belong to? And MIT has a very good intellectual property policy, but at the same time I knew there was a good chance I'd be starting a company. And so I really learned the in-depth part about the holography there, but avoided working on my own stuff. When we started the company here, we really started to put the ideas I had and some of the other stuff that we've developed as we've created the technology to work. So it's quite different. It obviously follows the fundamentals of holography, but the implementation and the technology we've developed will be patentable, and we'll be doing that.
Okay. This one is from KB, and I am interested in sending files from computer data to get a 3D hologram. And in parentheses here, he or she, I think it's he, said flavor number 2, because I think you have them listed as flavors or something.
Okay.
Should the frames follow a straight line or an arc?
Okay. Good question. Essentially, many of the listeners will be familiar with, in fact, up at MIT, they use a straight line track that has a shear camera or a recentering lens. We've actually gone back a little bit to what many people will remember as the type of stuff you could shoot with a turntable. We often use a dolly track from movie equipment houses, where you actually put a camera on a circular track and move around the object.
Oh, I see.
But you can still do the classic thing where you put a person or an object on a turntable, keep the camera stationary, and rotate the object. If you're rendering out information for from a computer graphics program, you render out in a circular path centered around the primary object that you're looking at. And we typically like to get information that's shot 180 degrees around the object with an image every 1 degree.
Okay.
Okay. And the one other technical thing that I'll mention is if you pick that center point that the camera is going to be, kind of the center of the circle, anything between that center point and the camera is going to appear to project out of the hologram.
Oh, that's nice.
Anything behind that point is going to look like it's inside the hologram, inside the holographic window. And then things right on the line between your 0 degree and 180 degree line are going to look like they're right in the plane of the film.
Yes.
And so that just helps you lay out and think of it a little more spatially in true three-dimensional terms. How much is going to be projecting out? How much is going to be inside the hologram? How do you want to utilize that space?
Would I be correct in assuming that if someone shot it by placing someone in a chair and doing that track in a straight line across, that would not work?
It would work. Obviously, when you're moving along, for instance, at a straight line or a track, you are gathering images from different angles, and you are getting parallax information. There would, if we didn't do anything with it other than just take the images and use it for our process, there would be some distortion, particularly as you got to the left and right edges of the view zone. The center part would probably look okay, and we're taking a look at, when we have people call us or contact us, which if someone has footage like that on a straight track, feel free to get in touch with us. We're looking at possibilities of pre-distorting the images so that it will work with our process with less distortion. Because
actually the person's going to move from the right-hand side of the frame to the left-hand side of the frame, so they're not going to be centered in the frame at all using a track either.
Using a straight track?
Yeah.
Yes. Now, if you use a non-recentering lens, and it is your image is kind of scooting by, not only are you on a straight track, but then you have to go in and do what I think is often called cropping and recentering.
Yeah, registering. Yeah.
Right, and kind of register it. And we can help people with all of those things if they need help, or we can just kind of point them in the direction from what they might be used to doing and give them an idea of what we need.
Okay, but for all practical purposes, get someone on a rotating chair and do 180 degrees.
I had two, if you've got a moment, I had 2 emails which I thought were really creative. One guy said he's going to set up his camera on a tripod and sit in a swivel chair and just spin himself around. I thought that was a brilliant, unique way to do it. We got some other footage from someone that I think they set up a stationary camera filming a woman who was kind of dressed up for the hologram. And I think it may have even just been a digital camera that he fired shots, and in between each shot, she just kind of shuffled her feet and rotated herself around. And so if you're, you can do that in a number of different ways. You can either just kind of, shuffle around or spin your swivel chair and see how it comes out. Or you can start to get a little more scientific about it and say, how can I spin the chair at a more even pace? How can I make sure that if you're shuffling around, can I do something to try and get the shuffling from one place to another to be about 1 degree at a time? And get a little more refined about it. But we're really excited about people coming up with creative things like that, of ways to capture the information. And one of the things we'd like to do on the website is have kind of a community section where people can give us a description of some of the unique ways they've captured information, and we'll put that up there for people to browse through and kind of brainstorm on some other ways they can do it.
That's great. This one's from CC, and what material is the final hologram printed on, silver halide film or photopolymer?
It is actually on photopolymer.
Great.
For right now.
Yeah. JH says, I have a photography studio and I want to know if there will be any discounts for photographers, videographers to use this as an outsourcing service, or will I have to pass the entire $99 to $149 on to my customers?
We've been getting that question a lot. We've got some, a number of smart business people who are looking at these things and saying, how can I get involved? And that's very exciting. Right now, what we've chosen to do is just say, look, we're still getting things started, and what we're saying is, kind of your front end, your capture, is going to need to be an added value. Our hologram prices, which you can tell, are already extremely low.
Oh my goodness! Yes.
Which is, it's just a great price for anybody who's been involved in holograms and known what it typically takes to do. Unfortunately, right now, we'd have to pass that whole cost along. What we'd like to see happen is we'd like to see people start to use this and see, get people involved, have them go through the process a couple of times, get familiar with it, make sure they know it, and we'd like to get to know them and work with them back and forth. And then possibly in the future, as we've kind of seen, hey, this is really working well for you as a business, and this is obviously really working well for us as you're bringing in business, how can we start to develop that relationship a little further? This is all in such early stages. These are terrific questions, and everybody's got some sort of angle or some sort of new idea, and we're just trying to figure out how to format them all. I think there's a place for them all somewhere in the future.
So that everyone stays in business, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think we're really excited about the fact that because if you know how to film holographic information properly, or you know how to do some of these technical things I discussed to get a hologram, you know a lot more than the average person who's looking at this, and there is an added value that you can bring to this to make someone's hologram look much nicer and look truly 3D and leverage that information you have. So I think there is a good place for that to happen and to bring everybody together.
Actually, you may have to brace yourself for some of the video files that you'll receive, I'm sure.
A lot of content, a lot of information, a lot of creative stuff.
Yeah. From BP, quite a few questions here, and I think maybe you've answered several of them.
Okay.
How many frames does a 3-second hologram contain? What format and size does the computer file option require? MPEG, AVI, QT, QuickTime, I guess that is. Frames per second rate, frame size.
We can take any of those movie formats you mentioned. We typically, or most often, use AVI or QuickTime files, but we've got the capability to read, pretty much anything, any movie file out there, unless it's a really obscure one. Most of the standard ones we can do. We typically recommend, if at all possible, if you're rendering on a computer, to send us files that are 1024 by 768, image size, pixel size. The Liti 3D process that we're using for the consumer holograms will lose a little bit of that resolution, so it doesn't come out quite at that resolution, but we like to start with the best information we can get our hands on. So if you're rendering it out, we recommend images 1024 by 768. If you are capturing with video, the best option is typically a digital video camera, a DV camera. And you can either send us a mini DV tape, if you'd rather just send us the tape, or if you've got the capability to download it to your computer, if you pull it off in the native resolution, I believe it's 720 by either 540 or 720 by 480, and send us the best resolution you can. If you're scanning it in from a camcorder, a traditional VHS tape, or you can just send us the VHS tape directly, and we'll scan it in for you on this side, you're going to get resolution that's around 720 by 480. The Liti 3D final images have a resolution that's close to about video resolution.
Okay.
To tell you the truth, it's such a new process, and we've been, doing so many things trying to get this out there and make it available to people. I haven't done the proper engineering thing, which I should do, which is get in there with the resolution chart and measure exactly what it is. But it's quite good resolution, I can tell you. It communicates a lot of the information. We start with 1024 by 768 images on our side because you don't lose a whole lot. In terms of how many frames, we put about 180 frames into each hologram.
Okay.
Now you can divide that up in a lot of different ways. We typically like to get 180 images, 180 degrees all the way around an object every 1 degree for 3D images. You could also do our actual view zone, though, for the hologram is about 110 degrees. Okay? So if you get 180 degrees of information in that, as you move through the 110 degrees of view zone, you're going to see the object rotate from one end to the other. And we call it over-rotation here just in-house, and it's just kind of cool. It adds a little rotation. It adds a little extra 3D pop to it, and it's a really cool way to kind of accentuate the 3D. But you could also fit, for instance, just shoot 90 frames, 180 frames each a half a degree apart. And that would probably more accurately fit or come closer to more accurately fitting our view zone. Okay? So a couple of ways. In terms of frames per second, it gets a little confusing because a lot of people who do video think in terms of frames per second. In the hologram, as you walk by, the frames play out as fast as you walk.
Yes.
So if you're a fast walker, you're going to see the motion moving much faster. If you're kind of pausing, standing in front of it, and doing what we call the hologram waddle, where you kind of waddle back and forth in front of the hologram to, see it move and see the image, it's going to move much slower. I usually recommend that, or tell people, the faster the motion you're trying to capture, the lower the time allotment you're going to be able to fit in.
Okay.
So to give you an example, I've got a hologram I made of my little daughter, who's about 2 years old now, from her 1-year birthday. And it's just some video clip footage of her kind of clapping her hands and raising her hands and smiling. And I chose to take about 3 seconds of that as opposed to 6 seconds because the clapping was a little fast and some of the movements were a little fast, that I wanted those to be communicated nicely and not kind of go by so quick that it looked like a blur. If you're doing something where you're just kind of filming, your wife or your kids just kind of giggling and smiling at you and just catching some of that natural charisma, or something that doesn't have a whole lot of fast motion, it's just kind of smooth, even motion, you could probably capture up to 6 seconds, maybe even longer.
Okay, just make sure that whether you send a 3-second file or a 6-second file, that when that video is mixed down, that either of them wind up with 180 frames.
Right.
Yes.
And often what we're telling people is, if you want to do that on your side and really know what's going on, if you've got the technical capabilities to do that, then those are the parameters to keep in mind. If you send us a 10-second video clip, we're going to take a look at it and then kind of communicate back and forth with you and say, look, we're probably only going to be able to capture about 3 seconds out of this if you want to capture this particular movement really nicely. And so we'll work back and forth with you a little bit to make sure it's done right. We want to make sure people are thrilled with the holograms they're getting. We're excited about people being able to do holograms, all for themselves and really get involved in the process. We want to make sure that we can help them do it as good as possible.
Okay. You already answered the next question. But I just want to include it. JH, it was answered. They wrote, I noticed on their website that they convert from VHS tape. Everyone has high 8 or digital 8 now. Can they use those formats as well? VHS would be a second-generation copy. So, JH, that was already answered. Let's go to FW. 2 more questions. This one will be a quick one, I think.
Okay.
And I don't know why. This is an interesting question. Do they use Macs or PCs? Just curious.
I hope I'm not going to alienate anyone just because of this question. We and it is humorous. We use PCs for the majority of what we do, but we have one Macintosh computer sitting in on our graphics guy's desk.
Okay.
Which we use for translation purposes. Occasionally we'll get zip disks or something like that that are only formatted for a Mac. Mm-hmm. And we'll use that to kind of translate it over. And I think our graphics guy also likes to keep it on his desk just to feel like he's not completely given over to PC.
Okay. Last question from JJ. Mm-hmm. Looking at the display, I noticed... Looking at the display... Oh, it must be the sample you have on the website. I'm sorry. Looking at the display, I noticed that they are lighted from the front. Are they reflection holograms or rainbow holograms with a mirror on the back? Can I make contact copies on my own?
These are true reflection holograms.
Yeah, because of the photopolymer.
Yes, because it is photopolymer. They're not rainbow holograms. They're just beautiful. I mean, if you guys have seen, true reflection holograms on a good material, even silver halide does a great job. I mean, they're just beautiful. Really holds the colors. Great contrast. Darks are dark. Black is black. I mean, it's just really good tones and everything. So we're really excited about this. These are great-looking holograms. In terms of can you make reflection copies on your own, technically as a holographer, yes, you would be able to do that.
But they're color holograms. That would prove difficult as well, right?
I mean, essentially, in order to copy color to color, you'd have to have the color capabilities yourself. And to tell you the truth, that's the first time I've actually thought about that question in terms of what's the legal situation.
Yeah, the implications there.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to get very technical, any work like this, any hologram, as any holographer out there who's created their holograms knows, the holograms are automatically copyrighted material. So, you get a little in a strange area there. If you called us up and said, we want you guys to produce this to make a master, and then here's what we're going to do with it, we'd probably try and work something out.
Yeah. Well, before we close, since we're up to almost 40 minutes already, believe it or not, it's a great 40 minutes, so let's take a little bit of time. I'm sure there's a few people out there that are very interested in the technology, and I know you're limited with what you can say about the process. But just for, the tech people that have been following holography for so many years, and they're just interested in how this technology is evolving and what's happening with it.
Right.
Is it a diode laser system? Is it gas lasers? Could you tell us a little bit about the actual process of making the holograms and what you've done, as much as you can say, technically?
Sure. Yeah, we actually use gas laser systems, and we use just a huge amount of laser power. Photopolymer, by its nature, almost doesn't want to absorb photons. But, if you hit it with enough laser light and spend enough exposure time, it works quite nicely, as you can see from the holograms.
I'm sure I'll be getting a call from someone at DuPont.
These are, it's a great material, and as anyone who's had a chance to work with it works really well, but they know it's not as sensitive as even they would like. But we use what are called large frame gas lasers. And we've actually got wavelengths that cover red, green, and blue in order to get a full color spectrum. Very much like your television set, which has little red, green, and blue pixels. We actually use, technically speaking, a krypton line to do the red, and then we use the argon lines to do both blue and green. And that gives us a full color mix that we can get the full color images from.
And I imagine these are the large water-cooled lasers.
Yes. Big size lasers, and it's always a lot of fun to show people the laser systems. They are a big deal and make a lot of heat and a lot of water, but a lot of laser power as well. In terms of the holography setup, a number of the stuff is similar to traditional stereogram holograms.
Is it similar to Sony's little unit that they developed and they were demoing in New York one time? I did a show on that, the HoloTalk show.
Yeah, it is not. And we get a number of questions oftentimes comparing it to that or to many people be familiar with zebra imaging. Mike Klug and I were both up at MIT at about the same time. He was actually a research specialist and had been there for a long, long time, as well as going to school there, and I was up there for about 2 years for my master's, and we both wound up leaving and starting our companies at about the same time. Sony was doing a lot of stuff at the same time. Both Sony and I know Zebra a little bit better. Both of them use what's called a one-step process. So they're actually printing their Hogels, their little hologram pieces, directly onto the final film that you might be seeing. We, on the other hand, do not use a one-step process, and I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
We do not use the same thing. So we actually, there's no Hogels on the surface of the film to see. It's a very nice look, very nice kind of consistent look on the hologram. But we do not actually use that same type of system that the two of them are using. And I know their systems are a little different from each other as well, but it's not a one-step system.
Okay. And I'm sure this is not a system that we're going to find anytime soon in a PC warehouse for $149.
Unfortunately not. It would have made my life a lot easier if I could have. But no, we designed everything from the ground up. We designed it around a kind of a philosophy, at least, or a style of what I had seen at MIT and what's I know a number of other people have developed or tried to develop as well, which is kind of the idea of a hologram printer, something that automates the process. If you're making a stereogram, which I think you have a nice little thing on your website talking about making holographic portraits with a diode laser of all things, which was really exciting. And I think, was there also something on your website that had, it might have been a while back, that was talking about the holographic portraits coalition or something, or a group to try and move that along?
Yes. It was actually taking 6 to 8 individual shots. There wasn't a lot of parallax with it. If it was done properly, everything had to be done by hand, including the position of the slits and everything. If it's done properly, it gives you pretty nice results. I just did an 8x10 using that system as well. But it's a lot of work.
I remember doing holographic stereograms by hand, and they are really difficult, but they come out very cool. And, you know, we're doing a holographic stereogram process that is completely automated now. And so we put in the information, put in a piece of film, and walk away. And we've got it down to the point now where the machine calls someone's cell phone when it's finished.
Wow. To
let you know, hey, come pick me up, or if something went wrong or something broke, you can get back in there and check on it. So it's really nice. We've kind of been able, and that's one of the reasons even in the commercial side, we were able to produce these consistently. We were able to make them at I think a lower price point for what we were doing than had ever been seen before in the commercial industry as well, because we had developed something that you didn't have to have somebody sitting there over it and moving the little slit or moving around or changing something each time like is often done.
Every frame with what I was doing has to be hand registered.
I shot a whole stereogram once when I was in New York City. I went to college there. I shot a stereogram of the campus that I think had about 60 or 70 slits that I did all by hand. And it's great. And you read the little thing you had there on your website of even how to do the one with just 8 slits, and you really start to get an understanding of some of the things that are required to do this. We've just refined it into a process that's repeatable, computerized, and automated.
Patrick Boyd did a number of nice pieces of work by hand.
And I think he did one of a subway car, which I swear I think was the subway stop I used to get on and off of. So I've told a number of people that I went to college at Columbia University in New York because the Museum of Holography was there in New York City. And then when it moved and had trouble and MIT wound up buying the museum, I had to go do my graduate work at MIT because the museum had moved up there. So I've had the good fortune of seeing a lot of great holograms that people have done. And it's a lot of fun, and that's really what I wanted to do with our company, Liti Holographics, and particularly now that we've got this new process, the Liti 3D process, I wanted people to be able to get excited about seeing holograms, seeing this great stuff they may see in stores or museums or displays, and then have somewhere to go with it. You know, how can I do something? How can I get involved? And I really like what you guys are doing on your website of trying to get more people involved in making them.
Yeah.
And we wanted to have something similar that is kind of, hey, if I want to create a hologram, where can I go to get that done, and how can I make sure it's done of what I want, and that it's cost effective?
Yeah, yeah. And I'd like to point out before we close this out, whether you're Anheuser-Busch and you need hundreds of holograms that are large format to go into different places, or if you're just a small retail shop or someone who does jewelry or things like that, all these holograms can help out.
Absolutely.
A very wide spectrum of clients. And one of the lists that I have here as far as, you know, how they can be used as far as retail stores, kiosks, bars, clubs, and venues, packaging and labeling, security, authentication, virtual reality exhibits, lobby displays. If you have a small company or something, what would be better than to have a 3D holographic logo of your small company logo right in your lobby, whether you're AT&T or whether you're Bill Smith's insurance company.
And there's a lot of three-dimensional computer graphic stuff out there now that's making the ability to create, for instance, your logo or some sort of object in 3D graphics. They're making it very simple.
Yes. Consumer contest premiums and also award plaques. And something that I don't notice on here, but that I've done a number of holograms for in the past have been for trade show displays as well.
Yes.
To grab people's attention and bring them over to the booth.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of use here.
And we're looking at, we're getting more and more creative ideas every day. We had somebody call from a museum type place, I think an aquarium, that wanted to use the holograms, and one of the things we kind of wound up coming to was possibly using it as a fundraiser.
Yes.
At the prices we're doing for Liti 3D holograms, you know, there are some patrons who, you know, will supply or give, you know, money in the area of $500 or $1,000 or a couple $1,000s. And this is a real unique gift that you could give that may cost only $99 or $150, or depending on how many you do, maybe a little less. That's a real unique way to say thank you, and that they may want to hang up and show off and be able to really point to and say, you know, yes, I donated some money, something they can be really excited about, and may help raise money for you. On the very, very low-tech side, you know, we discussed being able to plug in a video clip of, you know, your family or whatever you want. We talked to someone else who had the idea of just possibly doing what we've called kind of a photo album hologram. If you only had, you know, 4 or 5 pictures and didn't have a whole video clip or something, but you had 4 or 5 digital pictures you could send us, we could turn it into a single hologram that as you move around would play out your photo album. And it's just, these are the kind of ideas we want to foster, and I really hope that people listening to this will, you know, come up with more creative ideas and talk to us, and let's bounce some ideas around. There's so many fun things you can do with holograms, and there's so many unique capabilities that the technology of holograms has, that it takes some bright and creative people to come up with those, though. And so we're looking forward to hearing from them and hopefully putting some of those ideas up on the webpage to stimulate other people as well.
You may remember one of the holograms in the permanent display at the Museum of Holography in New York, where the person did the hologram of the comic book. Do you remember?
I don't think I saw that one.
You walked past it, and every little bit of movement that you made, another page of the comic book.
Oh, wow.
So that was pretty cool, too.
Yeah.
Very similar to what you're explaining with the photo album.
Right. Yeah. Right, and that's just, there's so many unique ways to use it. Let's just, and particularly the holography community knows a lot more about that than most people. So it's exciting that hopefully we've got a tool here that they can use and, you know, really try out some of these creative things and not have to worry, hopefully, as much about budget-oriented concerns. Yeah.
Why don't we close out by you telling us a little bit about the administrative side of the company and who's involved with it?
Yeah. Liti Holographics is a company that as I mentioned early on, that was formed with outside investors, started about almost 3 years ago now. It's myself, and my partner is actually my father, Brian Christie, who, if people call in and talk to a guy who's got kind of a English or British accent, that's him.
Well, behave yourself with your dad there. Okay.
That's it. It's been a lot of fun. I told people that either we were going to kill each other or we were going to be the best partnership that anyone had ever seen. And we formed a very powerful partnership.
That's great.
It's worked very well. We've got Ed Thomas, who, Frank, you've talked to a couple of times.
Yes.
Is our marketing and sales guy. Does a great job and knows a lot of the technical side now, just from answering a lot of questions and being here for quite a while. So he's absorbed a lot, and many of you might wind up talking to him as being the front end of how to, get your information in or what to do next.
He did some marketing with Polygram Records with John Cougar Mellencamp and a few other stars as well, too.
He did. He has been involved in a lot of different things, and we like to hassle him every once in a while about who he's gone to the Grammys with or who he's done this or that.
Yeah.
Very talented guy, and was actually out in California, but wound up moving back here to Virginia for family reasons, and it's just been a great fit with our company. So we've really been fortunate to get him on board. We then have another engineer here, Bert, who does a great job. He's not in the holography area by background, but is in the optics side. So he's really learning a whole different side of what he thought he was getting into. And really helping out on the technical side of producing the holograms and helping us push the technology to the next level. We really want to keep increasing this technology and keep pushing this ahead. And then we have one graphics guy here who does a lot of the computer graphics as well as a variety of other different things for us, everything from advertising to website stuff. Fills a lot of different holes, and will often be one of the people who takes a look at the content that's being sent in, making sure it fits what we need for the hologram and getting it ready for that.
For anyone who would want to partner with you in order to do the photography, the videography themselves, send you the materials, and then you return the finished hologram to them. As far as a web marketing service, say, for instance, Joe Smith wants to put on his web page that he now has this as a service.
Right.
What can they get from you? Can they borrow one of your AVI samples so that can be downloaded from their web page? Do you have a policy for that?
That is a great question. We actually do not have a policy for that, but I'd be very interested in talking to people. Just give us a phone call or send us an email and tell us what you're interested in doing. I think what you've suggested would be a great idea. Probably a Liti 3D logo,
yes,
and one of our AVIs showing some of the stuff, and we'd want to, if this is the right kind of group we want to partner with, and it's a good choice for both of us to be doing this, we want to make sure you've got the right support.
Sure.
We've developed the technology that can produce these holograms. What's going to help us spread this and get more and more people doing it, I think, is a lot of the people going out there and filming and capturing some of this information.
Yeah.
Some people do it on their own, just for their own holograms, but like I said, I'd really encourage people who have a background or a knowledge of holograms to get involved here. I think this is a great way to turn your community or your area into a holographic community, and be able to reach out kind of in a local way to get them involved in making holograms. So that's very exciting, and this is how this stuff spreads like wildfire instead of just plugging along.
Yes, okay. Well, Paul, I want to thank you very much for taking the time to come on the show.
You.
And I want to let the listeners know that there are links on the HoloTalk webpage itself to Liti Holographics' website, both the website that deals primarily with the commercial applications and the larger format holograms, and also Liti 3D,
right,
which is more consumer-oriented for having holograms made of your family, your kids, your pets, whatnot.
Exactly.
Let me ask you this. Is there any content, well, obviously there would be, because I can think of something straight off the bat with all the news and the Internet going on, but where do you draw the line with stuff?
We got probably about the first week we had the website up, we got one of those emails
Yeah.
Very graciously asking, look, this is what I've got. This is what I'd be interested in doing. What do you guys think? And as a small company and being pretty early in this process, we've just said, look, we just want to be real conservative.
Yeah. If the drugstore won't develop it as film, don't send it to us.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Pretty much. And as any company, we have to say, look, we need to be real careful about what we're doing.
Absolutely.
We don't know where the content's coming from, and we just, that's where we'd like to draw the line. We think there's so many great usages for this. Hopefully, this isn't going to hamper anything or turn people off to it, but that's just. We need to be very cautious, and I hope people understand.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you very much, Paul.
No problem.
Will you stay on?